Next on Worcester News tonight, not backing down. The Save Notre Dame Alliance takes the developer of the former church to court. Plus, the attack sparked security changes at area hospitals. It's been 1 year since a Southbridge nurse was stabbed by a patient. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Olivia Lemon. The fate of a former Worcester church is now in the hands of a judge. The Save Notre Dame Alliance says the building was never vetted by the state, but the developer says they notified the state of demolition plans a year ago. Our Brittany Schaefer was in court today and has the details. Brittany?
Olivia, this is the last-ditch effort by supporters of the former church to save the building. They're arguing the demolition could be blocked by a state act, and the developer didn't follow the proper process.
It's an all-or-nothing situation. We're going to lose the building or we're not going to lose it.
It's the last chance for a historic church. Thursday, the Save Notre Dame Alliance brings the developers who plan to demolish the building to court.
If you're going to tear a masterpiece down, if you're going to burn a Picasso in the middle of Main Street, at least you should do it according to the law.
Well, I'm praying a lot. I am nervous.
The main argument between lawyers was whether the building falls under the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. This would require state agencies to study the environmental impacts of projects requiring state permitting.
It says that where there's state funding, there is MEPA jurisdiction. And it is the broad variety that extends to all aspects of the project that are likely, directly or indirectly, to cause damage to the environment.
And MEPA jurisdiction does not exist in this matter because none of the jurisdictional requirements that are described in CMR section 11.02A are met.
The argument now is whether state funding from the past applies to this recent private purchase by City Square 2 development.
Endeavor to render a decision expeditiously because I'm aware of the importance. I certainly appreciate the public interest in this matter. I understand it's very important, and I appreciate people's passion on all sides of this. And please understand, whatever decision I make will be in accordance with the law.
Plaintiff attorney Robert Scott says the fate of the Notre Dame des Canadiens Church is up in the air.
I know he's a very careful judge, but I can't tell you how it's going to go.
City Square declined to comment further. The demolition of the church is described as imminent and could begin in the next few days. Therefore, the judge doesn't have much time to make a decision. Brittany Schaefer, Worcester News Tonight.
Swift action by the Worcester Fire Department to stop a fire this morning. Dispatchers received calls reporting a fire on Mulbury Street. The flames were quickly put out, but the duplex suffered visible damage on one side from the first floor up. The department says the fire was caused by a hot cooking pan a resident dropped on her way outside. She was treated on scene for a minor hand injury. You may have noticed them while at a park or a field. Gypsy moth caterpillars are back, but some local experts say this year isn't as bad as the past. Our Rosalind Flaherty joins us now to explain. Rosalind?
Olivia, experts say the damp spring created a fungus that kills the caterpillars, and although the numbers are down, they are still out eating the trees. Gypsy moth caterpillars cling to this birch tree at Tower Hill Botanic Garden.
They're definitely here. Some areas are worse than others.
The caterpillars are out, but the garden says they actually aren't seeing as many as in years past.
Last year, when we had sort of a wetter period, really sort of decreased the numbers quite a bit.
The Department of Conservation and Recreation says a damp spring helps grow a soil-borne fungus, which kills off the caterpillars.
The days it rains, it may not be fun for you going outside, but it's very good for killing caterpillars.
Forester Nicole Kelleher says in 2017, more than 900,000 acres of trees were impacted across the state by the insects. It was the largest outbreak since the early 80s.
It is a very large area impacted, but not all of that was completely defoliated. Some had minimal defoliation on certain trees, some had complete defoliation on all trees.
She says even though this year is less widespread, they are seeing pockets of defoliation, particularly in the last week because the caterpillars are becoming larger.
A lot more trees starting to stand out, and this year it's mostly in oaks.
Kelleher says it's a little too late for people to treat their trees, but says the good news is the caterpillars are nearing the end of their life cycle and will soon turn into moths.
You just have to hold out a few more weeks until they're done.
Now, Kelleher says they will be collecting data over the next few weeks to see how much damage they have caused across the state. Rosalind Flaherty, Worcester News Tonight.
The Massachusetts Cultural Council receives a new round of funding for the year. The Cultural Facilities Fund is awarding more than $9 million in grants to the cultural sector for 2018. The money will go towards many nonprofits in the community. Tower Hill Botanic Garden is getting $92,000 to become more accessible and to make repairs to walkways.
I think today is just a celebration of what happens in our communities around festivals, around our historic identity, around cultural activities that are part of the lifeblood of what makes Massachusetts a great place to live, work, and visit.
And Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito says another $10 million will be awarded next year. A ceremony in Southbridge marks 1 year since a Harrington hospital nurse was stabbed by a patient. Since then, Elise Wilson has worked to establish extra security measures at hospitals across the state. Our Chandler Walsh joins us now with more on today's ceremony. Chandler?
Olivia, Wilson says today she's grateful. She's grateful to be alive and to be turning her darkest day into positive change. Elise Wilson is able to smile on the anniversary of an attack which changed her life.
If one little piece of him had gone wrong, I would not have survived this event.
The former Harrington Hospital Emergency Department nurse was stabbed 11 times by a patient. A year later, she's still working on getting function back in her hand.
I can't hold anything. I can't zip a zipper. I can't, if I put my hand on my granddaughter's face, I can't even feel her cheek.
But her spirits are high. She's become a champion for healthcare worker safety, speaking at events and sparking change. Wilson was recognized at the hospital Thursday, and a dogwood tree, a symbol of strength and recovery, was planted in her honor.
She's just been a trooper in her recovery, a trooper in terms of being a spokesperson.
The celebration reunited Wilson with the LifeStar team who flew her to UMass Memorial Medical Center for emergency surgery. Her daughter Amanda was there to thank them, saying they helped save her mom's life.
I remember her squeezing my hand. It was a really cool thing because I had no idea what was going on. For 8 hours she was in the OR.
Following in her mom's footsteps, Amanda is an ER nurse in New York. She's proud of Wilson's efforts for hospital safety. Harrington Hospital installed metal detectors within 3 weeks of the attack and now have more measures like extra security guards and training.
She's really advocating not only for her coworkers and her friends, but also me and my coworkers.
This is something that's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse. And the very least you can do is protect your patients and your staff.
Wilson hopes to continue recovering and getting function back and says she has at least one more surgery to go, and Harrington Hospital is continuing to improve their emergency department. They're holding a fundraiser next month for major renovations. Chandler Walsh, Worcester News Tonight.
For years, the Friends of Newton Hill have worked to transform the highest elevation of the park. Thursday, they unveiled a new flagpole dedicated to the late Paul Mullaney. The veteran raised his family in the neighborhood, and the group says Flag Day is a perfect day for the celebration. A flagpole at the summit of Newton Hill will honor the life of the late Paul V. Mullaney.
Really accomplished a lot in his life, but he carried himself in such a humble, approachable way.
The former mayor, district court judge, and decorated Marine Corps veteran passed away last year. He was known throughout the city, earning the nickname Mr. Worcester.
He loved the city of Worcester, and he grew up in Maine South, went to Holy Cross, went to public schools, and raised 9 children here, and 7 of the 9 are still in the city.
Thursday, the Friends of Newton Hill held a dedication ceremony of the newly installed flagpole for his family, friends, and city leaders.
It's heartwarming. Not only are they part of the community, but the son-in-law, the grandson, they're all very active members of the Friends of Newton Hill. So the whole family's been involved in this whole transformation.
Mullaney was a neighbor and steward of Newton Hill for 58 years. His son Paul says he would be honored to see the work being done there.
He'd be very proud of us and the city and how we're carrying on this tradition of beautifying the city and beautifying Newton Hill and encouraging young people to be stewards for our parks as well.
In the city of Worcester honoring World War I veterans in a special way, Wednesday they broke ground on a new memorial. It will feature metal cylinders with 382 engraved nameplates of veterans who died during the war. The city contributed more than $1.2 million to the project, and a WPI professor got on board as well, creating the design. The idea for the World War I Memorial Grove renovation project began after the president of the Green Hill Park Coalition wanted to restore the existing memorial.
I just feel very strongly that if someone goes and gives their life, for me, that's how I feel about it. They gave their lives for my grandfathers and grandmothers and my father and mother. I think they need to be recognized and remembered.
And the project is a collaboration between the city, the Green Hill Park Coalition, WPI, Worcester Tech, and the Worcester Tree Initiative. It is set to be unveiled on Veterans Day.